organisation. They keep trying to drag us back to a very old-fashioned way to approach the market. So what I like about IT now, I've never seen so many proof of concepts going on in an organisation, mine or anybody else's. You say, well, there must be a list, there must be a prioritisation. No, it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Because the consumers are consuming, the IT is supplying, and it defies a little bit. It needs some, of course we're a regulated business. There is some. Now the governance, which is quite tight, is actually tight but further out. If that makes sense, it's not very good description. But the idea being is the governance is a further out type model we're working in. And now suddenly we're digital. Actually, we're not. We're just faster, more consumer orientated, and we throw away much more than we ever used to.
Let me take that point up with Greg. I mean, are you seeing 2-speed, multi-speed, more pace, a bigger sort of sandpit to play in?
I am. I think there's been some discussion earlier about. I set out my team back in 2012. I set out a vision around better engagement with the business at all levels. So the team are actually tasked. They have business relationship management responsibilities with the business, and we also went through to ISO 20000 last year. I partly did that to demonstrate quality. A lot of people think, well, that's not really of huge value, the kite mark, but in terms of what it did to the team was to actually give them a degree of professionalism that they felt, that we felt as a team we'd achieved. And what that did was actually get us into the game again, because there was a danger that we were starting to slip out, that solutions were being procured, we weren't involved in those discussions. So we did that, and that's really turned it around. I think the other is around the development, and we talk about agile and these sort of technologies and these sort of methodologies. That's been tremendous. So instead of being IT, we'll give you specification, you'll come back in 6 months and we'll say, no, that's what we wanted, but we don't want it now. It's changed. It's frequent, so the team are under a bit more pressure, which they enjoy, but they're also getting much more timely feedback. And the other thing we've developed as an organisation is about the concept of fail fast. So obviously some things we can't afford to fail in, but a lot of it around as you said, around large projects, is that we can fail. So we can take chances. If it doesn't work, in days gone by, we might have gone on longer, and then that would have led to some disillusionment and certainly some credibility.
Yeah. And does failing fast, I'm an advocate of that, but does failing fast work in every sector, Sam, from a legal perspective? Would you say to you guys, well, you've got a chance to fail fast?
Get it wrong quick.
What's your thinking on that?
Well, I mean, it won't be me that you'll be getting help from, you'll be my litigator. So, from that perspective, I would always recommend have a contract that actually works. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned RAD, Agile, Scrum, and all that kind of stuff. Most development contracts I've seen is a traditional SDLC contract. I've hardly ever seen a proper Agile RAD contract, and the problem with using the standard SDLC contract, it just doesn't work. I mean, you can say it to the board, we've signed a contract, but it's basically, well, let's just hope everything goes to plan, because that's not going to really provide any protection.
But to your point about failing fast, you can fail fast now, right? We had a customer, they have to remain nameless, but they're a very large postal organisation, not in the UK, who was a huge customer for us. They had this brilliant idea, or so they thought, which was registered email, like registered mail, but registered email. Spent a ton of money building it, and it didn't work. No one liked it, and therefore no one wants to take responsibility, sort of thing. So it's we trundled on for 3 years with the contract, which we much appreciated. But they came to the end of it, and everyone ran for the doors at the customer because it wasn't their idea. And interestingly enough, they've switched now to still a customer of ours, thankfully. But they now are far more circumspect, but they're still banging out these ideas. And one of the most recent ones, which they've almost gone the other way. They are sort of nervous, and they use our Interoute sort of virtual data center sort of cloud platform because it deals with their federal issues in the particular country they're in. But one of the things is they are now sort of pessimistic about everything, right? And they did their own version of a WhatsApp, but it wasn't an American one, which sort of they thought would appeal. And of course they were completely caught off guard, right? And literally on a Friday afternoon, we get a phone call, guys, have we got sufficient capacity? And it has to stay in the country because they've done a national ad and it's just going nuts. And so I think the nice thing about it, as with Greg's point, is that from a development perspective, you can try stuff, you can fail fast, right? Because what's the worst that can happen, right? You may have, it could be a few weeks, could be a few months, but you haven't made a flipping great big capital commitment, which you're going,
it's the fail fast bit, not fail in 9 months' time.
And the trouble is you can fail cheap. You see, this is the nice thing.
At low cost.
Yeah, because in the past, you'd spend the money, do the project, spend 9 months delivering it, and then it wouldn't work, and you would go, I can't, you've got to try and make this work, right? I can't be that wrong. So I think from that perspective, the fact that the things you can de-risk more and more and more with the variety of infrastructures that are presented to you gives you the opportunity to try more and more.
I mean, I think that's where kind of, if anything, digital for me presents a level of exciting that frankly rolling out an SAP platform probably doesn't, right? I mean, go fail fast doing that, really. It's incredibly expensive, it's going to really hurt, and you actually have to make it work at the end of it. There really isn't a choice. Whereas the reality is, for me, that this new territory is somewhat exciting and interesting, but it's a question of how do you get into it, right? And how do you build the right culture in your organisation so that people can allow themselves to fail? Because it's all very well saying, we can fail fast, and people go, yeah, but I've got this performance review at the end of the year that measures me on the basis of results, and I don't get a bonus if I fail every project I work on. So how does that work?
It is
right?
definitely a culture. I mean, it's such a rich topic, and I sensed it was going to be that, and I do want to draw people from the audience in on some questions and get your feedback on those. So anyone, I'm sure there'll be a forest of hands going up there. I'll take this gentleman here first.
Oh, thank you. So it feels to me that my name is Sam, I'm head of architecture for Group M. So it feels to me the past few years that CIOs and directors of IT have been very busy defending IT, looking after the SLAs, reducing costs, looking after projects, justifying their IT projects, and they're kind of stuck in defending IT all the time. Whilst at the same time they want to add value, they seem to be only doing it from a cost-cutting perspective. And what do CIOs need to do today that's sort of achievable to try and be engaged in adding value outside of this keep the lights on and deliver projects?
So how can CIOs push that boundary and add extra value?
I think there's a fundamental about, and that is people need to understand that I don't need to own everything. That's a fundamental change. About people see, yes, I can provide value, my team can provide value as advisors, as guidance, but we don't have to own. And that's been the flip. We perceived a few years ago as, IT, got to own it, right? Well, that's going to slow things down and everything. So now we're a part of it, big part of it, but we don't have to own it. So we don't even have to build it these days.
Chris, your thoughts?
Actually, I agree. To be honest, with the point made that I don't think you have to own it. For me, what's interesting, I go back to my point when I picked up the CMO brochure and looked at all the sessions that they're talking about. They're talking about exactly the same thing. So while IT is often the corner defending its position as technology owners, the reality is everyone else is off there trying to go after a digital opportunity. So for me, it's more almost like convincing yourself to join the conversation actually is almost the first thing, because there are sessions that are, as I say, the next door session is exactly the same thing. And as I say, I think the challenge you have is you sort of have to try to do both, which I think is where it becomes very difficult. You still have to, so somehow you have to try to feed money out of this side in order to throw it at that side, because you still have your heritage to handle, right? So you can't be like the CMO who says, oh, all IT is boring, I'll just go open a Twitter account and then I'm done, right? But I think fundamentally that the first thing I'll do is get to the mindset of saying, let me join that conversation, and then figure out what your role is in that conversation, but don't assume that you lead that conversation or that you own the end result.
Phil, your comments? The CIOs are letting go?
Yes, I think CIO should give virtually everything away. I don't know why we have big teams of people doing stuff and other people do it cheaper for us. I think we should be brokers, subject matter experts, spend most time in the business, let the business run their own IT and help them do it. You know, because actually they're doing it already. We pretend they're not, but they actually are. They're buying it themselves, they're running it themselves.